My name is Asher Garfinkel. I'm Vice President of Community Outreach for ALS Network, formerly ALS Golden West. We are based in California and Hawaii. So welcome and aloha to those who are watching as close as 5 feet in front of me and those who are watching from afar on Zoom. So I'm told that this is the inaugural panel for the inaugural Community Summit. No pressure, panelists, right? Right, we're going to be okay. It's an honor and a privilege to have been entrusted as the moderator for this panel today. Many thanks to the many volunteers and staff of AM ALS, and especially Michael. I've been talking to you quite a bit for the past couple of weeks, and you've all done a magnificent job with this week and this event. So congratulations to you. It is probably safe to say that there are a few ALS organizations out there, right? And it's safe to say that each is pursuing mission priorities related to care, any or all related mission priorities related to care, to research, to advocacy, to education. And today's panelists will all agree that awareness, philanthropy, fundraising really are the three things that will drive us to our final goal. And that common goal is to find effective treatments and cures for ALS. With that, let's meet our amazing panelists. I am in awe, number one, of all of the people here who are watching in the room and on Zoom. And I've had a little time to get to know our panelists as well. 3 of whom are here with me, 2 are on Zoom, and they are just magnificent individuals doing magnificent work. So let's get to know them first, and then each is going to do a presentation, and then we'll do some questions and answers. So I'm going to start with Reverend Deb Winters, and I just want to hear, Deb, where you're from and what your ALS connection is.
It's green now, so I could talk. Thank you, Asher. Deb Winters. I live in Huntington, West Virginia with my husband, and I was diagnosed with ALS March 10th, 2022.
Thank you, Deb. We're going to go to Zoom for a second, and we're going to meet Tavares Speer. Tavares, where are you zooming in from?
Tavares, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So my name is Tavares Speer, and I am zooming in from Indianapolis. I recently moved here from San Francisco. I was diagnosed with ALS, and I am here to use my voice to amplify raising awareness. Thank you.
Thank you, Tavares. And now let's meet 2 to my left, Lorri Carey.
Hi, I'm Lorri Carey, and I live in Westchester, Ohio, a suburb of Cincinnati, and I've had ALS for 20 years.
Thank you, Lorri. And now we're going to go back to Zoom, and we are going to meet Maycee Wilkie. Maycee, aren't you supposed to be running right about now?
No, well, yeah, but hi guys, I'm Maycee. I'm in Iowa, a college student, and my ALS connection is my dad had ALS.
We'll learn about that running comment in a few. Thank you, Maycee. And last but not least, an award winner, at least as of last night, woman who won the AM ALS Becky Morey Outstanding Co-Lead Award last night. Congratulations to Diane Hoey.
Thank you. I'm Diane Hoey. I live in New Jersey, and I became involved in ALS when my friend Lisa Stockman-Morello was diagnosed in March of 2021.
Wonderful to meet you all again and see some of you in 3D. Thanks for being here. So we're going to go to individual presentations now. So each presenter will have about 7 to 9 minutes to present, and just do your thing. Please share your magic with everybody here. And we're going to start with Deb.
Okay, so if you see that slide up there, it says raising funds and awareness when there are no deep pockets. Prior to my ALS diagnosis, I was a pastor, and I pastored a church in the west end of Huntington, West Virginia. If you've read anything online about Huntington, for several years, we have been the opioid overdose capital of the world. Our small church is a great recovery church. At any given time, I could have 3 or 4 people wearing ankle bracelets. We ran Celebrate Recovery, and it's an amazing ministry to be in charge of. We don't have endowments. We don't have a lot of folks that have great big deep pockets. They are filled with love. They understand the joy of the Lord. And tithing was a challenge. So that's where I started from. And also, if you know anything about West Virginia, I've only lived there 12 years, so I'm really just a newcomer. It will take another generation or 2 before I'm actually a West Virginian. Next slide. I'm going to back up a little and take you to Colorado, where I lived for 40 years, and where we started a festival called Frozen Dead Guy Days. Yes, really, it was called Frozen Dead Guy Days. Y'all can Google it when you're not listening to this panel. Next slide, please. Frozen Dead Guy Days started in 2001. It was organized because Nederland, Colorado is in the mountains west of Boulder. I was the Chamber of Commerce president. And we had a lot of businesses that did really well during the winter because there was a ski area right outside of town. And they did really well in the summer because you could come hike. But that mud duck season between ski season and hiking season, it was hard for our businesses to keep their heads above water. So, next slide. We started Frozen Dead Guy. Oops, sorry, back one. I forgot I asked you that. We started Frozen Dead Guy Days because there was a frozen dead guy in a stainless steel coffin in a tough shed in a residential section of Nederland, Colorado. It was just a little festival that we were going to do to have people come to town. A week and a half before the first festival, the AP Wire picked it up. I'll just say that we went from reserving 4 porta potties to having every porta potty that the company we were working with had on site. We did 3 different T-shirt orders. We had over 10,000 people in town that weekend, and we raised a huge amount of money. All of our businesses were busy. And I'll tie that in why I start there in just a moment. Now to the next slide. Deb's Hope for Tomorrow was started after I had spent a year preparing to die and then realized that I wasn't going to die right away. So you have to do something different if you're going to stick around. I wasn't the kind of person that did nothing. And so we put together a festival, Deb's Hope for Tomorrow rally. We had 3 months to do it. And I just want to assure you that there were many folks who told us we couldn't do it in 3 months. And next slide. Thank you. We did it in 3 months. In 3 months, we put together a festival that had live music the whole time. It had, I can't even see my own flyer, but we had live music, we had raffles, we had giveaways, we had a cornhole tournament, We had a massage. We had a whole kids area where there were bouncies, and we had it all completely sponsored. I know that someone's going to yell that we also had skydiving. I jumped out of an airplane that day, and the whole reason I did it specifically that day was to make the point that we do not have to go home, get our affairs in order, and prepare to die. We can continue to live the life that we want to live, and to do that as best as we can. Next slide, please. That is a picture of me coming down. Bless their hearts, they did a great job. The other picture is of the winners of the cornhole tournament. I'm told cornhole is one of the fastest growing sports. Who knew? Not me, that's for sure. But they, had a great amount of fun. We set it up, and we found a cornhole group that ran the whole thing for us. They had iPads and tablets that kept track of the score and who was on top. It was an incredible event. For our very first event, we raised over $21,000. That was exciting. We beat our goal, so that's always a good thing. Next slide, please. And this is why I do it, because the music hasn't stopped yet. My life is not over. I'm on this side, as my grandfather would say. I'm on the green side of the sod. And that means I still have stuff to do. Next slide. For ALS awareness, month in May, we did an empathy dinner. And lots of folks asked, what's an empathy dinner? Next slide, please. The empathy dinner, one of the local restaurants that's only open for breakfast and lunch, agreed to come in for dinner for us. And as each person came in and paid for their reservation, we handed them a slip of paper. And that slip of paper told them what their symptom of ALS would be for the evening. And next slide, please. Each person either sat in a wheelchair, or they couldn't talk, or they had their dominant arm in a sling, or something that allowed them to experience the challenge of the symptoms that those of us with ALS have. I love this sign, because at the end we asked, how did it feel when you heard what your disability was going to be? And this young woman wrote, social norms out the window, hard to meet new people when you can't speak out loud. So next slide. Again, that was a great evening. People learned, they understood more than when they came through the doors, and we raised a ton of money that night too. So how do all of those things go together? What was it for me that put those things together? This Bible verse helps. After Ehud, Shamgar, son of Anath, rescued Israel. He once killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. And that's found in Judges 3:31. Next slide. It's the only verse in the Bible. There's one other verse that refers to Shamgar, but this is everything that the Bible tells you. And so the secret, what is it that we do and how do we raise money? Last slide, please. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can.
Thank you, Deb. That was wonderful. I oversee a lot of events as well, and I'll tell you that we too measure crowds by the number of porta potties we order. So I get it. We're going to go back to Indianapolis on Zoom now with Tavares Speer. Tavares, you're up.
Thank you. My name is Tavares, and I want to say just thank you for everyone being here and supporting this awesome summit. And also thank you to AM ALS for having me as a panelist. It just means the world to me for me to be able to share my story with you all. So today, I don't have any panel or any slideshows or anything. It's just going to be me. And I want to talk about raising funds and awareness my way. And how that translates is like, there's no unique formula or there's no instruction booklet on how to be an advocate. You can do it in so many different ways. I don't know if you can see here. Let me pull up the shirt. I can, I'm wearing a For ALS shirt. That's just one way to spread awareness. So there's so many different ways. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit and start off with how I got to this point. So I was diagnosed 5.5 years ago, October of 2018. And just like Deb mentioned, they sent me home and they were like, just get your affairs in order and just wait until you die, basically. And after about 1.5 years and going through so many different changes, thinking I'm going to die, trying to, do my end of life things, I noticed that my progression was still very slow. I was still very active, very independent, and most importantly, my voice wasn't affected. So that just got me thinking, what ways can I give back? What ways can I help? And over the course of the 5 years, I met so many different pals, people living with ALS, and I was inspired by what they could do, even though they were far along in their stages of ALS. So it got me thinking, I like to speak in front of people. I like to use my voice, and I'm very good behind the camera or video. So I started slowly, and it was just as easy as just doing hashtags. Hashtags on social media are a great way to meet your community, to have people find your pages. So hashtags like hashtag ALS awareness, hashtag Lou Gehrig's disease. You'd be surprised about how many followers I have that when I tell them that Lou Gehrig's disease and ALS are the same thing, they had no idea. So just spreading the awareness that way was just a fuel for me to help me keep going. And some people told me, well, Tavares, I don't feel comfortable talking, or being so vulnerable. And I said that's fine. Like I said, using the hashtags, you can also raise funds through social media, and they made it so easy to do that via like Instagram and TikTok, and basically they facilitate the whole process for you. So when you go into one of these apps, you just go into the settings and you search for fundraising. It brings up that part of the application, and you can search for a plethora of different organizations that you'd like to support. AM ALS is one, ALS TBI, ALS Network, or ALS Association. There's so many different ones out there. And if you don't see one that you do want to support, you can also submit that organization, and once it's reviewed, they'll add it to the list. And anyone that you choose, just like Asher was saying earlier, we all of these organizations are, they have a singular goal, and that is to find a cure or end ALS or make it a livable disease. So I do my best to support each of these organizations whenever I can. And another thing that I also want to convey is, not everybody can raise hundreds and thousands of dollars. That's just, it's not possible for some people. So, whatever you make, if you don't meet your goal, that's fine. Every dollar that you raise is going towards finding a cure. So that's what you want to stay focused on, and that's the impact that you will be able to give. So now I want to talk about, what fuels me, like what actually keeps me doing this, because advocacy can be pretty rough, especially for someone that has ALS. I'm constantly, going over my story, and sometimes it can be hard on me as well. But I have been reached out by several different people on social media, sending me messages and comments, just telling me, how much they appreciate me being vulnerable and transparent about my journey. And that started, really resonating with me, saying, I can actually, help certain people. Like, maybe I'm not impacting on a global scale, but I am affecting, a handful of people, and I'm actually making a difference in their world. So that is what actually keeps me going and makes me want to continue doing my advocacy. Though that's basically what I do, and that's just what I do. Through this, I've been able to amass a large following on social media. It just kind of happened that way, and I was really surprised myself. But you never know what impact that you will have by just the smallest effort. Wearing a T-shirt, somebody might come up to you and ask, "What is ALS?" Or somebody I loved, or one of my loved ones had ALS. So I also have a ALS TDI tag that's talking about ALS. And I get so many people that will say, "Oh my God, someone else I knew had ALS, and thank you for sharing this." So, no act or effort is too small to raise awareness and to be an advocate. So I would love for each and every one of you, if you are on social media, please give me a follow. My Instagram is the one I use the most. It's the.Tavares, or you can search for me on Twitter as just my full name, Tavares Speer. And I have a link tree that will connect you to all of my different social medias. I would love for you all to follow me and follow my journey. And you can reach out to me, ask me questions. If I know the answer, or if I can point you to the right direction, that will, that's what I'm here for. I've affected so many different people. One person in particular reached out to me about a year ago, and they indicated that they had been following me for quite some time, and they finally built up the courage to reach out to me. And this person and I have become such good friends, and I'm so happy that I'm able to help them. They always reach out to me as, like an anchor or support for them. Through my help, I've encouraged them to, go to the neurologist, and, because they were really afraid to find out what was going on with them. So just little examples like that, and I have so many more. That's just, wonderful to me, and makes me want to keep on and continue doing this. So again, thank you all for having me, and I look forward to meeting you all through the social media.
Thank you for sharing, Tavares. And we'll come back to you later with some Q&A, I am sure. Now we're going to hear from Lorri Carey.
Okay, thank you. I had the privilege of speaking at the flag display this morning, and I talked about the power of our community and the importance of everyone's contribution. And I think so far what you've heard is that every single contribution is important and impactful, no matter how big or small. In this circle of amazing people for 20 years. So our family started at the beginning in 2004, advocating and fundraising. So I can stay here for a really long time, but I have Michael in front of me with signs. So I just wanted to share, it was just a few months after I was given my diagnosis on Friday the 13th that I got an email from my dad and it was saying there was an ALS walk in Cincinnati. Do you want to go hear about it? I was interested. So I asked my husband, and of course, he was on board. My two sons were 11 and 13, so they were jumping on it. And then I said, they're going to have food. And then they were in. So we were at our first ALS Association, Walk to Defeat ALS at the time. And everyone did their presentation and talked about their team and how they got involved. And we were on our way home. And I remember coming from the back seat, Paul and Christian, and one of them said, hey, Mom, we can do that. We can get together a team. We can raise some money. We can get 100 walkers and raise $10,000. And they were 11 and 13. And I remember being a mom and being like, oh, yeah, yay, and really encouraging them. And I also remember looking out the window and thinking, they're going to be crushed when they don't reach their goal. And I'm going to be so sad for them. 2 months later, they had come up with a catchy name called Kids for Cure. The number 4 for Lou Gehrig, Kids for Cure. In September of that year, they had 550 walkers on their team, and they had raised $80,000. That was 20 years ago. One of my sons is right in front of me with a mom's favorite t-shirt on. From Paul. My other son, Christian, is in Austin, probably with the same t-shirt on. But they have raised over $1 million so far today. And I just say all that to say, number one, believe in your kids. Little people can do big things. And every dollar adds up. And you know, that was in 2004. That was before social media was a thing. It was 2004, I think, when MySpace came out. So for them to fundraise and spread awareness was like going to the local 7-Eleven and asking if they would put a donation jar on the counter. Standing in front of the grocery store selling root beer floats for $1. You know, and Paul can probably jump up here and tell you, but I know that it really let them feel like they were doing something, you know, that they weren't sitting back and that they were making a difference. So I wanted to give some other examples of things we have done. And Deb, you mentioned it, like, I don't know your words exactly, but basically advocate and fundraise where you live. You know, we did so much, it's a lot easier to incorporate it into your own life. So like my one son was a hockey player. So he would do a hockey tournament or in a fraternity. So they did beer drinking events, you know, stuff like that. My other son is in theater. So he would do things at the theater after the show. So it's a lot easier to do it where you live and to see your community invest in what is important to you. So 5 years ago, I was thinking about what I can do with the extra time I had been given. And I had found myself trying to explain to people, I want you to hear about Smiling Paul. I want you to hear about Carl. I wish you could meet this person. And I thought about how can I share so many incredible people that I have met that have encouraged me to get through and to keep fighting and to keep advocating and fundraising. And it was on my heart to start a podcast. I am not tech savvy at all. I decided I would do it on my own. I learned how to do a podcast. I know how to record. I edit with one finger. I have learned a lot about the whole process. And I have a couple of people help me, my other son, with the uploading and website. But it was a way to share inspiration and raise awareness about ALS along the way. And I have talked to Kylan, Tim, Paul, several of you in this room right here, many of you who are watching, and it's been an absolute privilege to share your story. And this podcast is now listened to in 116 different countries. And I get messages daily from people who are lifted up and inspired to continue whatever fight they're in, whether it's ALS, cancer, addiction. Everyone has a struggle, and it's a lot easier when you meet someone and you can relate to someone who is overcoming something of great magnitude. So, an easy way to share awareness is to tell someone about the podcast. I'm not only talking to people in our ALS community, but other people like Kyle Carpenter, who is the youngest living Medal of Honor recipient. He literally covered a grenade in Afghanistan for his best friend. Or Kanya Sesser, who was born with no arms, no legs, and left on the side of the road, who today lives a full and joyful life under her own motto, no legs, no limit. And you all, we have no limit. So thank you for letting me share. And I welcome you to tune in, to send me a note, to connect with me, and allow me to share your story. So thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing, Lorri. Now let's go back to Zoom, the Zoom room, and Maycee Wilkie in Iowa.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. We'll get into what Asher meant by me running and how I'm supposed to be running right now, but I just want to start off. So I'm a college student. A few years ago, well, more than a few now, when I was 11 to 13, I was the primary caregiver for my dad who had ALS. We had lost my mom when I was 6, so it was just us two left to handle the darkness of ALS. It took about 1.5 to 2 years for him to finally receive the diagnosis of ALS, and they literally told him, like, there's nothing we can do for you, so go live your life. And he literally walked out of the hospital because what else are you supposed to do if they can't do anything for you? So after he passed away when I was 14, I was really in my stage of grief, and I didn't know anyone in the ALS community. To be honest, I didn't know much about it myself, because I was still in that stage of like, oh, he doesn't have ALS, he's gonna get better, and we're gonna be able to like play basketball again together, just things like that. So in 2020, I decided to learn more about ALS, to not only comfort myself, but to know more and to also raise awareness. So I started a Facebook group, and the sole purpose of this was to like educate the people around me that have no idea what ALS is other than like the ice bucket challenge. And so that Facebook group allowed me to raise awareness. It allowed me to fundraise money, whether that be making bracelets or just people wanting to donate. And then later that year, I started an Instagram page where I'm basically at now, where I do most of my awareness. And that I was just able to kind of bring light to the darkness of ALS, whether that be fun Instagram reels, interviewing people to get quotes. And then last year, I was on a walk because I was stressed. Like finals were coming up, and so I needed to take a walk. And on this walk, I was reflecting on my past, and I was like, how are you stressed right now? Like, you literally are living your dream of going to college. Because there was a point in my life when I was a caregiver that I didn't know if I was able to, like, I didn't know if I was going to go to college or if I was just going to be a caregiver for 10 years or whatnot. So I was reflecting on this walk, and I just stopped. I was like, I am able to walk right now. In ALS, when you have ALS, you lose that ability. And so I knew ALS month was coming up, and I knew I needed to do something to raise awareness and to really let people know that their ability to walk or move or to speak, like, they should be grateful for that. And I just wanted to make a change in that aspect. So I started On Your Mark, which is a gratitude and movement challenge. And that was just me challenging myself and others to walk or move a mile a day and finding something each day that they're grateful for, whether that be they're grateful for their grandma or they're grateful for the ability to talk. And I kind of just started it out as like my friends and I, but then posted it on my social media, and several people joined, and it was amazing. So this year I was like, okay, I'm going to do it again. So with the help of AM ALS, Live Like Lou, Kylan Morris, so many amazing people, I was able to interview people for Thankful Thursdays, where I feature people living with ALS to show the aspect of it's hard to be grateful when ALS is in your life, but we can still find things to be grateful for. And then on Fridays, I do Fact Friday, kind of honing in on those people that have no idea what ALS is, and to really show or share that it is an awful disease, but we aren't, for those living with ALS, you aren't ALS. And for us impacted by it, we don't have to let it define us. So it's just been an amazing journey, not only me being impacted by it, but how I'm able to impact people and raise awareness through this. So thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful job, Maycee. Now you can go for a walk, right?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your leadership. Okay, let's hear from Diane Hoey.
So my presentation focuses on the awareness part of the title of this panel, and I'm going to walk you through a resource that was created by Pals and Cows called the ALS Clinic Advisor. Next slide. Today, I have the honor and the privilege of sharing the work of two pals, Pat Dolan and the late Sandy Morris. ALS Clinic Advisor is the result of their vision and their work. These two ALS warriors were talking in the middle of the night, emailing back and forth using the chat function on Zoom. Those of you in the room know you don't sleep the best when you have ALS, so why not talk to a fellow pal? And they were talking about, like, what if a pal had the ability to see what other people's experience was at an ALS clinic? And for a clinic, what if they had the ability to see how patients felt about their experience and what their expectations were for clinic? And so that's how the idea was born for the ALS Clinic Advisor. And many people in the community know Pat as the map guy. He's a geospatial professional, and he has used his talent and expertise to develop many different types of maps. He's got maps on environmental risk factors for ALS. He's mapped where the veterans ALS clinics are. He has lots of different maps. He did maps when we were advocating for Act for ALS and showing what representatives and what senators were on board and who still needed to be contacted. So he brought that talent to this project as well. Next slide. So what is the ALS Clinic Advisor? Think TripAdvisor, but for finding ALS clinics and learning from fellow pals and cows about the services that are offered at those clinics. And for clinics themselves, it's an opportunity to benchmark and to evaluate what they're doing well and seeing maybe what expectations that people have that aren't being met at the clinic. Next slide. There are 4 main apps on the ALS Clinic Advisor homepage: Find a clinic, add a clinic, review a clinic, and look at the clinic reviews that have been collected. Also on this slide, we want to highlight and do a shout out to the different organizations that are using the ALS Clinic Locator and have put that on their own website. So thank you for that. If there's other ALS organizations in the crowd, we'd love for you to embed the Clinic Locator on your site. See me afterward. Reach out to Pat. We'd love that. And also a huge shout out to Pat's employer, Esri, for providing the platform in which this project can reside. Next slide. So the Clinic Locator is the foundation of the ALS Advisor. The ALS Clinic database is very comprehensive and very up to date. It's being used by several leading ALS organizations so that people can find a clinic both in the US and internationally. You can search for a clinic using your town, your zip code, your state. You can kind of, zoom in on the map and see what might be near you. You can change the distance because not everybody lives near an ALS clinic, unfortunately. And healthcare professionals can also use this research. If you're at your primary care physician's office or your internist's office and they need to make a referral for you, and maybe they don't know themselves where the closest ALS clinic is, it's a resource for the healthcare community as well. Next slide. And next slide. Did you go there? Okay, sorry. Sorry, back up one. Sorry, these two look so much alike. So as comprehensive as the ALS Clinic Locator is, since we've been doing the survey, survey respondents have identified 10 additional clinics that were not on anybody else's list. So they've been added to the database. So there's 242 clinics that are represented on the database. So again, Pat takes great pride in having it represented. And it's important for it to be thorough because if we have more clinics in the database, hopefully it represents a shorter path to a proper diagnosis and treatment for people. Next slide. This is the survey component of the ALS Clinic Advisor. And if you went on to take the survey, this is what you would see. Next slide. So we go through 7 aspects of the clinic experience and ask CALs and PALs to rate them, looking at the neurologist, clinic therapies and services, clinical trials and research, clinic administration, clinic equipment loan program, accessible communication, and facilities. Next slide. It takes approximately 8 to 10 minutes to complete a survey. It is eye gaze friendly, and responses appear anonymously. We again want to give a shout out to the different organizations that are collaborating with Pat and the mappers to promote the clinic locator, as well as the clinic survey. And we would like pals and cows to complete a survey 1 to 2 times a year, depending on how many times you go to the clinic. Next slide. And this is the review summary page. So anybody, when you go to the website, would see this information. It's a summary of the surveys that have been completed. You can see it by clinic, you could see it by neurologist, you can see it by the different therapy functions, OT, PT, respiratory, by information about the facilities. Clinics can also see the results here, but the clinics can also get a report generated by the mappers to look at the information specific to their clinic. Next slide. In addition to making people's experience at the clinic available to pals and cows, there's also the information that can be made available to the neurologists and the clinics and healthcare professionals. And this was a poster that Pat Dolan created that was presented in December at the International ALS MMD conference in Basel, Switzerland, to share some of the information that had been captured to date on the survey. And this one that was highlighted was that 36% of respondents said that their clinics, only 36% of respondents said that their clinic educated them on clinical trials. So if I'm a new person and I'm on ALS Clinic Advisor, I can see that and make a note to myself and say, okay, well, when I go in for my visit, if they don't proactively bring up the clinical trial information, I know that's important to me. So I'm going to make sure I ask a question about it. And if a clinic sees this, maybe they think they're doing it, but this statistic says maybe not. So it's just a reference check to, double check that this is some important information, and let's make sure that we're providing it to people. It's something that they want to hear. Next slide. So to date, I got to put my glasses on for this because my numbers are too small on my printout. 589 surveys have been done for 171 clinics, represents about 75% of clinics in the United States. For some of these clinics, it's just 1 or 2 surveys. And that's interesting. Like, you're going to go on, you're going to read it, and you're like, okay, that's interesting. But we really need numbers. I mean, we all know there's credibility in numbers. And if we have 20 or 30 or 40, 50, it's just more valuable information for everybody involved. So as pals and cows and healthcare professionals and clinic people, organization people in the audience, on the table out there, we've got stickers with a bit.ly code where you can go to the survey. There's some business cards, there's little flyers. I've got bribes with cookies, but we'd love to have you share it so that we can build those numbers. We're also doing little fun raffle. If you do the survey, if you complete a survey and you include your email address in the next couple of days, you could win a $50 gift card to Starbucks or a $100 gift card on Amazon, and then share it within your own network so we can build those numbers. And last, because I'm getting the flag from Michael, next slide, Shauna. Every Thursday at 3:30, I get to spend an hour with all of these wonderful people. These are the people volunteering their time, the cows and the pals and the advocates, to try to get their work out. And so any support that you can lend to the project would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane, for that important work. And a shout out to Pat Dolan and his wife, Mara Dolan. If they're watching from San Bernardino, California, Pat and Mara have been ALS Network heroes for a long time, and we appreciate all the work they do as well. So we're going to go into some questions, and if you have any questions and you're in the Zoom room, just put them in the chat. I'm monitoring it myself here, and I can get some help from Shauna and the team as well. And I'm going to lead off with a question and then we'll open it up to the floor here and the Zoom space. Well, Michael, we have about 10 to 15 minutes here for Q&A. Back to me soon, right? Okay. Okay. Okay, great. Great. I'd like to ask a question of all of these awareness and fundraising warriors here. And in no particular order, Maycee and Tavares, you can raise your hand in your Zoom space, and or we'll let whoever whoever rings the buzzer first. Raising awareness and funds is not for the faint of heart always, and there are obstacles in the way. And I'm wondering if you could share what some of those obstacles might be in the current landscape for awareness and fundraising, and how you might advise sidestepping such obstacles.
I can go. I can go.
Oh, okay, Lorri, you're up.
Okay. What I have found over the years is that people are more likely to be invested emotionally, financially, if they have a connection. And so I talk about ALS and I let them know or remind them that 90% of the people who get ALS is it's completely random. And so you don't know when you are going to become intimately involved with this disease. And so it's kind of like before ALS enters your life, you might want to jump in with us and stop this, before it affects someone that you love. So that's kind of a point that I had on just general overall awareness and fundraising. One other thing specifically, like on my podcast that I've come across, is I've had so many people approach me and say, I know about your podcast, and if I haven't mentioned it, it's called I'm Dying to Tell You. So I'm Dying to Tell You podcast. And they say, I've heard of it, but I'm not quite ready to listen. And I just want to say two things to that. Number one, sometimes stories and episodes are hard, but at the end of the episode, you will feel hopeful and feel like there is opportunity to be filled up in, a really hard life with ALS. And I forgot my second point. So that's the beginning of my.
Anybody else want to
Could
help
I?
out with a response? Maycee?
I want to go with what Lorri said. So when you mentioned that, I just completely, like, an obstacle I notice a lot is if there isn't a connection. It's hard to get people's attention. But as Lorri said, you kind of got to pinpoint it in a different way of anyone can get it. And so I was actually watching the No Ordinary campaign documentary the other day, and my friends were watching it with me, and they said, I don't know how people living with ALS do it, or I don't know how caregivers do it. And I said, well, we don't know either, but we just do it. And so that's why I find it important in the way I raise awareness, or we raise awareness in fundraise, is it's not only to share the raw and bad things that come with ALS, but to share the joy and the goodness that can come with it. And if I were, we didn't pick to be in the ALS community, but there's no other community I'd be a part of because everyone in it is truly the best. So even though it is an obstacle to kind of get people to pay attention and kind of understand, it's easier because there's so many of us trying to raise awareness.
Thank you, Maycee.
Yes.
Deb?
I have to agree with both the ladies and everything that they've said. It's about relationship. It's about talking to people. It's about getting in front of them and letting them see who you are and how you live. And yes, one of my points just went out of my brain as well. The other thing that I do still remember is that when I do fundraising, I try to make it personal for me. The people that I'm talking to know who I am and how I live my life on a regular basis, day to day. And my fundraising reflects that. And so being able to be authentic when you're talking to people makes a big difference.
Thank you. Tavares, Diane, do you want to share any? Okay.
Yeah, basically, they all covered what I was going to say. Each time someone spoke, I'm like, oh, I was going to say that. But yeah, basically, that's the thing, to make the connection with people. A lot of people, you know, they have no idea about ALS. They don't know anything about it. And me being personal and, you know, I'm very transparent. I mean, I will answer any question. I've gotten used to it, and I'm not embarrassed anymore. One of the obstacles though, for me personally, I don't know how this affects others, but when I do get really personal and transparent, it sometimes it's really hard for me. Like, I'll finish the video and I'll just start bawling my eyes out. And you know, that's a part of it. You know, I'm continually going through different stages of grief, I guess, but I push forward, I push through, because I know that my stories are helping people.
Thank you, Tavares. All right, so we will go to the in-person audience here first. Michael with the microphone.
Hi, my name's Kelly Goodman. This question is for Deb. I'm really interested in the empathy dinner that you had. I would love to do something similar to that. And so maybe we can talk offline in more details, but a couple questions off the top of my head here is, you know, how did your friends, colleagues, families react to the role play of the ALS symptoms at the dinner?
Well, that was one of the very first questions that our MC asked. We brought everyone in, they sat down and had dinner, but they immediately had their disability, if you will. And as dinner was winding down and they were starting to serve dessert, Craig said, "How did it feel when you first opened that piece of paper to know what your disability was and what you were going to be doing that evening?" And one of the women said, "It sucked." Yeah, it does. And the interesting part was, yeah, that was funny, but it was also a reality check, because when the doctor says you have ALS, it's not going to go away in an hour. And that may be your first reaction as well, too. So,
I just have one more follow-up question. Like, for the restaurant that you held it at, how was advertising done for that? Did they put up posters, or did you just use social media, your friends and family, to spread the word about it?
we put up posters. We individually invited people, and we used social media. And yeah, so that we did all of that is what we did. And next year, we're pretty sure we need a bigger venue. So that's a good thing.
Somebody in the chat room just asked if we could share the link to the clinic advisor. So
Yeah, one of the things I can do after the summit, I'll email all the panelists and see if there's any links you wanted to share, and I can send it out to everybody who's registered.
thank you. We'll take another question from the audience if we have one.
I have a question. I was wondering, what is it like, or how do people react when your social media feed changes? Like, you're posting all these things that, happened before ALS, and then ALS comes in and you decide to be vulnerable online. How do people react? How did you feel about that? Just wondering if any of you had a thought on this.
I started
I
a separate page. Oops, sorry.
oh,
Tavares.
no problem.
We'll go with
you go first.
Tavares and then Deb.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, at first when I was first diagnosed, I was just I had a very trendy page, just showing my vacations and going out partying and having fun, just like any other regular adult. And once I got diagnosed, I didn't jump right into it. Like I said, I just kept being me and doing, just doing me in my life, basically. But one day during, I think it was 2020 ALS Awareness Month, I finally pulled up the courage and I posted a hashtag, I have ALS, but ALS doesn't have me. And I just left it there. I didn't say anything. And my inbox and comments were a lot, like I couldn't even respond to everyone. They were like, is this real or are you just an advocate? And it was such an outpouring of like love from so many different people, the kindness of strangers. And there was also another part, like a lot of friends that I had that were, just my social friends or, going out with. A lot of them, some of them pulled back and, I don't hear from them anymore. And, that's okay. Some people just can't handle it or handle the diagnosis, even though I'm the one going through it. So I just push forward and tune out any negativity or anything like that and just focus on the people that are actually focusing on me and reaching out to me.
That's the Tavares. Okay, Deb, go ahead.
Similarly, when I was first diagnosed, I set up a separate page so that Deborah's Hope was not on my regular page. And that seemed like the right answer for a while. But then I found in probably just even the last 6 months, I post on both anyway. So I still use both, but I am who I am. And I have ALS. And if you want to pull back and not be interested, that's okay. People in real life have pulled back and not want to be interested. And that is less okay. But it's reality and that happens.
Anyone else want to share in response to Michael? Okay, we have another question from the audience here. Michael's getting in his steps.
Hi, thank you. My name is Maggie. I just want to say thank you for being here. My question is, when you're using a platform to raise awareness, how do you find the balance between being honest about how raw and ugly this disease can be, but also trying to keep the narrative positive and hopeful? I think that's one thing that I want to raise awareness, but also there's a lot of ugly parts to this disease that, it's hard to share those things. So I was wondering how you all advocate and show the real parts of it, but also spread hope while doing so.
I think I can chime in on this. Honestly, I share both sides, like sharing that being young and being impacted by this disease, by my dad dying, does affect someone. But my advice would be let your personality shine through. I'm kind of a bubbly person, so I really don't hold that back on social media. Like, yeah, ALS did impact my life, but I'm here to tell you guys, and as any of the panelists will say too, that like we just live our life. And so let your personality shine through. don't let the darkness of ALS or anyone tell you that you can't raise awareness for it. I've had people tell me that my dream job of advocating for ALS isn't realistic, and I'm here to tell you, raising awareness and following your passion is realistic.
I'll just say that when I am talking on the podcast to people that are living with ALS, we always do talk about their challenges. What's ALS look like on you today? What are your greatest challenges that you have? But it's always followed up with, what have you learned from those challenges? And what would you say to other people who are in your situation? So I think it is a balance of showing the tough stuff, but then what advice do you have from your own experience that would allow others to handle that more gracefully, differently, empowering? So I think it's important to have both of those parts.
And yes, I agree. I want to follow up with what Maycee and Lorri were saying as well. With me, like I said earlier, I'm fully transparent, and sometimes I might even cry sometimes during some of my posts, but there's some videos or posts that I post that are just really raw and hard to hear sometimes, but the majority of my posts, I'm just showing the world that, hey, yeah, I can't walk anymore, but I'm out here with my friends watching them play basketball or football or whatever. I still try to go to the bar and have a drink with friends. I just keep trying to show that even though I have this disease and it is killing me, I am still out there just trying to live my life. When I first was diagnosed, like I said, I was so depressed. There was no way that I could have been like this and been so open about my situation. But over time, it helps me let it out. And once I let all that out and I cry or whatever, I'll go outside and do a video of myself. I'm really good at those TikTok videos, by the way. So I'll make a video of me just dancing, or not dancing, but dancing in my chair, having fun. So there's a contrast of what I'm experiencing sometimes and how I also live my life. So that balance, I think, really does help people, because I'm not there to try to just depress anyone, but there is a depressing side of it, and I think being open about that and honest, it will resonate with people.
Agreed. My right hand is my dominant hand and my right arm is totally paralyzed. So I only have one hand that I can use anymore. And when I ugly cry, I'm snotting and doing I can't type. So the good news is I can't post anything while it's a really ugly day. And that has saved me a few times. I do have people that I can call. My husband hears a whole lot of it when it's a bad day. But again, I agree, you need to share the good and the bad. I tell people, and this was the point I forgot the last time, I tell people that to have been diagnosed with ALS was a blessing. And they look at me like I've lost my mind. And that's how I get their attention. They listen when I tell them it's a blessing. And being able to say that here's what I've received from being diagnosed with ALS. Here's what I'm now able to do that I wasn't able to do before. And that helps.
I can chime in really quick again. You reminded me of something, Lorri. Sorry, but yeah, when you get diagnosed, and or I'll just put it back to me. When I would see someone in a wheelchair, or like when I, back when I used to be able to walk and everything, I would just think to myself, my gosh, how can they keep going on? They can't walk, or they can't do certain things. And I just, into my mind, I was like, I could never handle that. That's, and I could recall back to this one show, and I watched it again recently. And at that time, when I first watched it, I hadn't been diagnosed with a terminal disease. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that poor guy, like what, how is he going to go on? And once I heard those awful 3 words or 3 letters, it took me some time, but here I am 5.5 years later. I'm still trucking along. What I'm trying to get is you don't know how much you can handle until it's presented in front of you. And I have hard days like Lorri and Deb and everyone else, but I just keep pushing through and pushing forward. I'm actually say to myself now, wow, I can handle this. So when people ask me, I just tell them, I felt the same way, but until you hear those words, or until you're in this situation to be a caregiver, you don't know how far you can go. So sometimes it's hard to answer that question because it's for the individual, but that's my 2 cents.
Okay, it appears we are at time for this panel, so we're going to have to wrap it up. I could keep speaking with these brilliant individuals for a lot more time, so maybe I'll grab them in the hallways or whatever. But anyway, thank you all. Thank you, first of all, to our brilliant panelists for joining us. Thank you to our audience, those who tuned in on Zoom, and thank you and congratulations to AM ALS for a wonderful community summit. We're back at 4 o'clock, right? 4 o'clock.